Gentlemen, I am here with one of the most rising talents that I have witnessed on the indie scene. Her name is Slammin Sammy. Say hello to the world, Sammy. How are you?
Well, hello there, Brandon. I am great. How are you?
I am splendid. I am very honored to get this interview rolling. And you told me you made your debut at 18 in 2024. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
And you're 20 now, right?
Yes.
And you have been to many, many different promotions, as we will learn about. And you've been to the places that you sent me: Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, New Jersey. I believe this is IN is Indiana, right? Indiana?
Yeah, Indiana.
Tennessee, North Carolina. KY is Kentucky, right?
Yes.
MI is Michigan.
Yes.
And then you've also been to Virginia. How
Yes.
do you ask to go to these promotions? Or do these promotions come to you?
Okay, so usually how it works is for the most part is these promotions mainly, like come to me,
Okay.
cuz I never really like in a way like asked unless, they put it out there, in a way, I'll shoot my shot then, at that time. But for the most part, I mean, these places have, reached out to me, through, and, I feel like I've made that way and a reputation for, all the traction I get and all that. So, and all that thing, so to speak.
Okay. Now you want to tell us, how did you get involved in this business of pro wrestling?
Okay, so for me it all started whenever I was like very little, when I was about like 3 years old. My dad was actually the one who got me into this. I was free, and he would do like wrestling moves to me, like on the couch, like choke slammy on the couch, that sort of thing. And he just kept bringing it on to me. And then, like, as I grew up and got older, and by the time at the point that I was 7, and I decided that I wanted to be part of this business.
Okay. Now, were you watching it like and on TV with him as well, like, or was it kind of like a thing that you started to do by yourself?
I watched it with him whenever it was on like TV, like especially when I was really young. So,
And what made you decide to join?
well, I mean, I discovered, I think, whenever I was like younger, like when I was like 7, like it was just like my number one like joy and like my number one passion. It always made me, and it all in a way, it always made me, happy to not only watch it, but I often, wondered at that age, like, maybe there is that, opportunity for me to like do this. And I just kept falling in love with it, every show, I've seen. And, I've been there, I've been to like, live shows too, whenever they come to, PBG or whatever. It's just something that a love that grew, inside my heart internally. So, and ever since then, it's still there.
How did you come up with the name Slammin' Sammy? I'm assuming your name is Sammy and you added Slammin' at the beginning?
Yes. So how I came up with the name Slam and Sammy, I mean, I wish I could take credit for my own name, but I will say this. I had a karate background. So I did Shotokan karate for 7 years. And the thing that I was best at was sparring or fighting. And to me, I have like that aggressive, rough like nature of just fighting and basically beating on people. So my teacher at the time ended up first putting the name on me, Slammin' Sammy. Then I just always thought to myself, that's perfect. it would be a great, wrestling name. And, mainly I figured out too, that's, who I am. So then once I found that, I'm like, yes, that would be a great name. That would be a great name. So
Okay. And you talked about doing karate. Is that what you added to your move set? Do you also want to tell us about your style, like how you would describe your style?
I would say for my style, I normally like I don't involve,
Oh,
karate
okay.
in it very much. So I mean, for me, I am a like I am a technical and powerhouse wrestler. So I'm basically like, a mixture of like both because I'm like really technical in the sense of I can do like big and then I can do like, big power moves and such. So
Okay. You want to tell us about your training and who all trained you?
so I ended up starting training when I was 15, and that's a gift to be able to, do that, especially in PA because the person who I ended up training under a man named Brandon K at the Stronghold Training Center, and he also has his own, own company called Rise Wrestling. So all of that in a way is together, and I ended up starting to train at 15, and that was like a special exception because he realized in a way I was very, passionate about it. So he decided in a way to, let me start out early because normally people in PA don't start, until they're like, 17, like 18ish. But like he just saw, I think, the passion that I had in me saying, yeah, yes, I want to do this. And, he said, you really love this. And I'm like, yes. So then he just, let me start on early.
What do you mean, like start on early? Did he like immediately, like at one training session, he was like, "Okay, you're going into a match."
It was more like an open house. I mean, just more on the training level because I didn't officially make my debut until I was like 18. So like I started training when I was just like 15. So he immediately like started training me there. So
Okay. Now, what was your first match like? Can you describe what it was like facing who you were facing, what the crowd was like, and how you felt walking out of the curtain?
well, the first time, let me tell you, I mean, it was a surreal like experience. I mean, honestly, it felt like, a fairy tale in some sort of sense because I feel like in this regard I ended up having like the red, carpet laid out for me, in such a sense. And my opponent, who was Laura Lovelace, very very good in the ring, honestly, a very good, veteran as well in a way, very skilled in her own. It just ended up being like a great day, and there was like, so many people that came because, they heard about it, hey, gonna debut, so, not only that, but the people who helped me get there, like my trainer, I think even my trainer was he was just very happy for me in that moment. So it was a magical time altogether.
Now, what was the crowd like for your first match?
The crowd was very amazing. I mean, they were like on their feet, especially like, when it came to me because, they knew like in a way because they've seen me down there before, but that's just, because whenever I was just starting, I was just doing, ring crew and stuff, and still working my way into this business. But now, they see me, they're like, oh yeah, finally, we get to see Sammy, debut and make, finally make her time in the ring. So in a way, it was just a very special moment. So
Somebody getting? Are you getting a call?
that's just my house phone. So
Oh, wait, you still have a landline?
yeah, yeah, we still have a landline around here. So
Hey, taking it back to the classics where it's all started, right? Now, so when you told me you were watching it, did you actually ever go to a live show in general?
Yes, I actually did go to like a couple live shows whenever I was like very young. When it was like very young, I went to. I mean, the last one I was at recently was like at like a house show type of thing, which my parents ended up like surprising me with, and I
Oh,
had no idea. So so that was very cool. But I mean, I remember there was like a couple I went to when I was very young, and they still they come out like like the memories and stuff of me holding up like signs, and they were all basically Seth Rollins and the Shield because
yeah.
that was my two big first loves. So
What's it like wrestling on the indie circuit in general?
it is very wonderful, and it's also like a crazy and wild, you know, thing, because you have your highs, you have your lows, and you have your ups and your downs, but at the end of the day, it's all around like an awesome time, especially when you have it, all together in many of ways, shapes or forms. It's really, like amazing, and I feel like, independent wrestling can only get better and keep growing every day.
It's definitely. Now, you want to tell us maybe a couple idols you had growing up that inspired you? It sounds like your dad was a big influence as one of your idols.
Yeah, I mean, he was more of like big influence on just, introducing me to wrestling. The people that I've looked up to in this business, my favorite faction, which my first love and definitely, like I said, the Shield. I mean, highly, that was like the first thing loved and I saw on TV, because I was like, ooh, who are these free men and all that, sort of speak. And I wanted to know, more about them. And then as later, like, time went on later on, and, they separated, my favorite wrestler, and still is my favorite wrestler to this day, is Seth Rollins. So
Okay. What moves did you struggle with, but you eventually mastered with your move set?
there was like a lot of moves that I ended up, like struggling with. Like, I mean, stuff that is like the most like agile, like I feel like, one of the things I struggled with at the first time was like, learning how to do like a flip bump. Because in a way, like I never did a handstand or anything, which is basically how we start for that. It was a whole other level of like learning. And I look back on it now thinking of, how I did it not, how I not knew how to do it, to now where I'm at the point where now I can do it without, no fail. So now, when we have like new people in our training center, I just think back at the times, of when I couldn't do it, and how I had to relentlessly, work at getting it. So, I mean, I remember that was one of the first things that I ended up struggling with on general. So
You want to tell us about maybe, unless you're trying to keep it a secret, any moves you are working on, or are you good with the moves that you have?
I'm currently working on some stuff and moves. I mean, I'm this person, who believes, because you see these people that are like, after they make their debut and they start wrestling, they're like, oh, I don't need training anymore. I'm just one of those people. I'm like, no, wrong. You still need to train. You still need that time in the ring to get better and improve. And and that's what I feel like, for me. But I feel like that's what everybody's, mindset, should be like. So still, training and working on and improving and getting better. I'm working on some stuff right now, like some big power moves, which I won't deep dive, deep into like exactly what they are, but they're gonna turn out pretty great. And I keep working with it and powering through it every day. And And the thing is too is, I'm not, the quickest learner. So in a way it takes me, some time, but I think, after it takes some time, in a way, you learn at your own pace or whatever, and then you finally get it in a way.
Almost definitely, practice makes perfect. And do you want to tell us about your finishers and signatures, starting with your signatures and what you have named them if you have?
Okay, so my signatures, I have the Polish hammers, and I call them like the slammer hammers or whatever. So like Polish hammers, where I'm basically like hitting them like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then my other signature move I have is the Russian leg sweep that I actually call the Motley sweep.
Mhm.
Because my favorite music band is Motley Crue.
Hey.
So, and it's basically like I just have a guy on the side, and I put my leg in him, sweep, and it's a very easy, like, simple move in a way that can be done on anybody. And then I have my finisher, which I call the Sammy Slammer, which I give to everybody, which is basically like a which is basically a boss man slam, except I don't do it with the turn. So I just grab them and plant them on the mat.
Almost kind of like what, like a bookend per se, like Booker T.
Yeah, kind of in a way.
It's cool. Now, what? How do you stay motivated in wrestling?
Well, it's a very hard thing to stay motivated in wrestling, especially if you're down, in this part of the business, because it's a very hard thing, no doubt. I think basically what's helped me out for the years is, like, positive, like affirmations and like thoughts, in my brain type of way. And I work a lot with this, because because the truth is basically I have social anxiety, and I have a bunch of like things like that, where I never always had the best like confidence in things. And how I work through that, is like saying, like I said, positive thoughts in my brain, and doing stuff to keep me calm. Like I believe in breath prayers, or like breath sayings or whatever, which really like help me through that way. And I think that another thing is not to be like too trustful of people, in this business sometimes, because I know Stone Cold said it once. I actually read it in his book DTA.
Yeah.
Don't trust anybody in that way, sort of, speak. But I've been keeping my head up more with like the positive thoughts and stuff. And like, and I'm prone to, since I have social anxiety, I'm prone to like spasms or like spazzing. So finding like breath techniques and stuff, and finding ways to calm myself down too. And how I keep motivated is basically just keeping my head up and reminding myself, that I can do this, just as well, as anyone else at the end of the day.
How do you prepare for a match or show?
How I usually, how I usually like prepare is, I make sure that I make sure that I am in the ring training, that I make sure, especially, during the week, just busting myself day in and day out for that. And I make sure, gym wise, that I'm, in the gym doing, what I need to do to get myself prepared. And then, for the matches, how I, prepare for those is obviously, like, stretching, doing my thing, and using like the things like, the breath prayers or sayings, or like the calm breaths that I take, to calm myself before the matches, because you could still get those nerves, but at the end of the day too, and to make sure that all things are smooth and sailing, before I get out there. So
Most definitely. Now, after a match or just after a show in general, how do you unwind?
So how I unwind and how I usually unwind after that, like it usually like see like it depends usually what, because I could be, because usually like I go back to like my hotel or, I come back home. It depends, how far the trip is for me or whatever. So, I come home or I come to the hotel. If it's something where I end up going for a hotel, then I'm driving back home and hitting the gym again because I'm doing like, I have to get, stuff in, obviously for the gym because I'm doing like I have my own like workout, program type of thing. So having to get that in. And usually, how I celebrate, after all my matches is I usually have like a cheat meal too of some sort or something, I can indulge on.
A cheap
Or a
meal?
cheat day. A cheat meal or a cheat day. So
Okay. What's your preferred meal?
I would say my preferred meal. I mean, I can't even count it as a meal. I would just count it technically as like a snack.
Okay.
I would I would say chips. Any kind of like chips. Because I'm not a dessert type of person. I'm not really too much into sweets. I'm more of like get me something salty type of thing. So
Okay. Respect that. Um, so when it comes to support from family, friends, you want to talk about the support you've had in this business. It sounds like your dad was an influence on you, so I would imagine he supports you in your aspirations. And it looks like what I've gathered your mom does as well, what you said on your Facebook and such.
yes, both of my parents are very, great supporters of my career. My dad was very supportive and excited from the get-go. He was first, and then my mom is very, supportive and, promoting me, helping me, get my name out there and all that sort of thing. And just being with me and, constantly reminding, that I have all the potential in the world to do this as well as, my dad. And they've been there for me too, especially for all like, the low moments too in my career because that doesn't get because I don't think people talk enough about because we talk enough about the high, but I don't think we talk enough about like the low, about like, the struggles. So they've been also very, very helpful and supportive for that. But I think overall they're just very supportive of my career and, the life that I chose for myself and, being flexible with the life, that I chose for myself in a way.
Good to have that support. Now, for a typical week for you, you want to tell us how that goes because you say you train. You want to walk us through like a typical week and maybe recovery because I would imagine you do take quite a few bumps and probably get quite a few bruises out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, yes, of course. I mean, we say it all the time, but it ain't ballet. But
It ain't ballet.
but usually for the week, it's like on Monday, usually like a Monday night, I'm going to like training. I'm going to like wrestling training, and it's usually a night. We have like new people in there, so we're working. Right now we're working currently with them, and then it's us, advanced people doing our thing too. Us, who are actually, wrestling, doing our thing and such more. Then I'd say like on a Tuesday, I would be hitting the gym and doing like another day, of my like program. It's like a 4-day program thing that I have for myself. So and it's very, very good for me. I do that and I do, yoga too, which is very, very helpful. And then on Wednesday I would be right back and like training and all that sort of thing. So yeah. I mean, Wednesday morning though, I usually like hit the gym again before that. And then like and then I go to therapy on Wednesdays too because therapy is another thing that I do, to help myself, because I ended up starting to doing it a long time ago through, after going through some things and so much more. So then after that, I would be doing like a night of Wednesday night, then would be like wrestling training. And then and then Thursdays it usually like depends. I'm usually having I usually, go to the gym again in the morning. And then I usually like have a like wrestling session, which is, something that I do on my own with my main trainer, and shout out to him for doing that honestly honestly that's, a big ask. And so much more so. And then I go back to the gym again at night just to do, yoga and all that sort of thing. And then Friday, I'm usually like relaxing and getting things done and getting ready for, like, the show or whatever that I have coming up and that sort of thing. And Saturday would be like, the show. And then like it would either be Saturday or Sunday that we'd, come back home. And if it's Sunday, especially, I'm going back, to the gym. And then like I'm having like my cheat meal or cheat day somewhere, and all that before, the week starts again.
Now, do you want to tell us what it's like? Have you had like any serious injury? How do you recover?
So I haven't really been like, I haven't really been like injured.
Okay.
I don't want to jinx myself. Um I haven't been like I haven't been like really like, injured yet, but like the ways that I do recover or be like, I believe, in things like, like massage, like, like them weird, like massage gun things. Sometimes, good majority of the time I use those. And I take like a nice warm bath. Some people do like, the ice baths, and I don't know how they can do them. They're, they're nuts. I can't be in that, can't be in that cold water. I just basically take like a warm, like bath, like, Epsom salts too. Epsom salts are very good, by the way, for soreness. So stuff like that is basically what helps me, recover.
Okay. Now, when it comes to traveling, you said you go to places and then what it sounds like you get like a hotel. Do you not? Do you also like? How do you get to these places when you travel? Do you take like a bus? You take like a car? Like how do you get there with?
Just mainly taking like one of my like parents' cars, or my car too, because my mother has a Jeep, my dad has a Jeep. I also have a Jeep. We basically take we basically take one of the free like cars. Mainly it's one of theirs, not so much mine. Not so much mine, but mainly it's one of theirs. So it's just basically us all in, either one of those cars.
Okay. Now, when it does come to the business, what's your entrance like? How would you describe it to somebody that may not know your work or anything? Like, how do you come out and do you change up your theme song every single time, or is it the same song?
So my theme song is the same, is, basically the same like song. Unless I'm, somewhere where it can't be used, because I have like this other, alternative that a fan made for me, and it's like called like She's Slammin'. So I have that for like, just in case I can't use my other song because, copyright and all that sort of thing. My theme song though altogether is Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue. Obviously I said I'm a big Crew fan. So that is basically, what I do when I come out. I come out, I come out, with like an agitated face, like ready to work, and still high fiving, and giving back to like all the fans, and then coming in the ring and basically, hitting my pose, and then just, getting ready to work.
And you've basically worked what I've gathered. You play basically have played a face most places. You've never really done heel, have you?
Yeah, I haven't really like done heel because I haven't really have like, enough experience in in that platform. I mean, I know down the line it will like happen, and I'll get all that, experience more and such a thing. But I'm mainly more of like, a face. So
What do you like about being a face?
what I love about being a face, especially for my character, is I've been channeled like this badass like type of character, in a way where it's like, I ain't taking, I ain't taking no for an answer from anybody. I What I really like about it is, hearing like the people like in a way just like, levitate and get, and getting up for you in a way. And fan, connections too are very, are very special in that, alignment of everything, where, there's like, it could be like a little kid, an older adult. It can all, it can all vary. And I think that just brings it all, that especially that stuff in wrestling, brings, wrestling like more eyes. And, more importantly, it pulls like, people in wrestling like closer and such. So,
Well, do you want to tell us about fan interactions being a face, like memorable fan interactions?
yeah, I mean, I've had some memorable fan interactions. Like I have some pictures too, especially like
Nice.
little little kids especially are like the best. I'm very much in that way for, for like, the little kids, in that way. I see them, like I remember during my debut, like I grabbed a bunch of them in the circle and we ended up like, I don't know, like celebrating like, this is it, finally. I knew the little ones, but it still was a very fun in that regard. And, and now like I still do whenever I get out there. If I see a little one, I'm going to, make my way. I'm going to make my way towards them in a way and try to give them something, very, very special in that sort of way. Like, and I remember too, there was one night at a show. This was right after, like, I think John Cena's retirement. There was a little kid dressed up as like John Cena, and it was like the cutest thing in the world. And me and all the wrestlers that were on the show, we gave some acknowledgement to him, and it was just it was like one of the most adorable things. Or, and I also have a picture recently where like I high fived like a little kid's hand. Like basically the parent just presented them to me like they were like Simba or whatever sort
Yeah.
of thing. And I just like grab his little hand. I'm like, okay. I'm like thinking to myself, that was a great moment. I'm like, okay, now get to the ring. I'm like, so those are some memorable ones for me.
That's awesome. Now, how do you were saying how you want to describe more about how your character differs from you in real life? You said you have anxiety, and does that definitely differ from your in ring character? You would say.
Yeah, it's definitely different from like my ring character. Like, my character is like different in a way from like, because Slammin' Sammy, is who I want to be. And I feel like too, Slammin' Sammy is, who I am. Somebody, who people look at and say, no, no, you can't do it. Somebody who's been screwed over from like, time and time again, who's basically been through like hell in that sort of sense. But then, just comes back, bigger, like badder, and ever says, no, you're not, gonna take me down. Basically like, badass Rocky Balboa type of thing, where I'm like, no, I'm like, no, I'm like coming back, and I'm gonna take what's, mine type of thing. So it's basically like me up to like, 1,000%, which, usually are the, are the best characters. I mean, don't know what everybody else's input would be on that, but those usually are the best characters. So I feel like it's me up to, a T, especially, the aggressive parts about myself. And I love, including that part about myself, like personally, like, like personally, like, wouldn't do in a way. Cause, because, having like, social anxiety and stuff, which too can be hard when you're trying to play another character, but it's about figuring out in a way to turn that, to turn it off for that time and be, who you are. And that for me being Slam and Sammy, of course.
Now, you want to describe to us your promos? I've seen a few of them from what I can gather, and you want to describe that to people that maybe have never seen your work.
So basically my promos like I always like, make a point of where, of like, where I'm going to be and what has happened, the last time I was at, said company or whatever. And I think my point too with promos to make is, I'm not, backing down. I am coming back. I'm gonna, take what's, mine. And and I'm not dead yet, that whole type of thing, and I'm just gonna keep, I'm going to keep like fighting. And it's a and I remind all my opponents, especially at the end, that it's slamming time at the end of the day.
Now, for uh, s- places you would want to go, where would you want to go?
Jeez, well there's so many like places where you can go and like wrestle and like travel. I mean, I've heard of events in like heard of things in like Alaska. I mean, I didn't even know like
Oh yeah,
I didn't even know like you could wrestle in Alaska.
oh
So
yeah.
like new things like that would be very cool. And like new states, Canada's a big one, obviously, Japan and all of these. So like I figure, all these states, where I never, been at, they would be, wonderful. They would be, wonderful places, for me to wrestle and work. So
And speaking of places you have been, I think we'll actually take a minute from the standard questions and move on a little bit. We'll come back to these, but I think we'll also go down the promotions you've been at, and you could tell me what you like about the promotion, and like what's like working there. And before I do get to them, what is the toughest locker room you have been in?
geez, the toughest locker room that I have ever been in, like in a way, like the toughest locker room, like space, like like space wise, honestly, because there's is like a couple of like little promotions where I went to. Like I remember one I'm going back to called like Top Notch. I think this was like they were in a different building, whatever. And that was strange in a way. Or like, outside shows where, there's no like you gotta find like some other place to like change and that sort of thing. I've been into like places
I'm guessing
like
you got to go
that.
use the
Or
porta potty at that point.
yeah, yeah, that's where you end up going. I actually happened at my one last show where I ended up having to so, things like that, or just, anything where we're like tight and like crammed sort of thing.
Well, speaking of top notch, what has your experience been like there?
My experience from there has been very, like, very, very wonderful experience I have there. Obviously I would say a lot of great people, and a lot of great, talent in a way too. I think people like whenever, go to some places don't get like acknowledged enough for like their talent, but some people have very great talent down there, some great faces that I know. So they do everything to put on a good show in that sort of way.
UCW? I'm not sure what it stands for, but
um
it was on
ul-
your list.
ultimate yeah, Ultimate Championship Wrestling, that is a very great like company, a very big company with it, too, in themselves. They get in there like very big names, a very good place, especially for girls whenever given opportunities and that sort of thing. And just a very like overall like place, when you like win them, and when you win like the people back there, in a way, it's just a very special and a very like great environment altogether. I mean, the last time was for me there was just like wonderful. I ended up walking out with that cheese cup champion, and then ended up wrestling in a tag match with two like guys, basically, because because the women didn't show up and all that sort of thing. And it was a very awesome match too, and I had a great partner. So, and the willingness for me to be able to still, for them to be like, because they could have told me, no, you don't, they could have told me like, no, you can't, but they were like, nope, you're gonna get your spot. And I was like, okay. So they're just the best with all that and all that sort of thing. So great environment to be at.
WDWA?
WDWA, it was a great like promotion, especially too, like whenever they did like the all women's event. That's very greatly like put together. The promoter is such a good guy in a way, such for the women, and it's a nice environment with nice girls, which sometimes can be hard to find, being someone like me in the business, because such things with women end up happening and turning. But for the most part, that locker room though has been very great, and it's a good promotion. So
USWA, which I believe stands for United States Wrestling Association, right?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, that was a good promotion in a way. And in a way it was like a little smaller, but I think people shouldn't take it for granted because of that. It was a great company, to go up and show out for. Honestly, good little crowd we had there and everything. And so, and very much more. It was just all around a good company and great show. So
APWF.
APWF was a great show. It was like one of my first ones I did, I think, when I started wrestling. It was a very good show for me. A very educational show too, in a way, because I had a seminar during that day too, before, with Bill Collier, who's now on TNA, just one of the best absolutely in this business. And it was a very good like experience for me in the ring. I learned a lot, too, about myself, and about working, working with other people mainly and such forth. And it was a great promotion put on by Bubba Brewer, and he did a splendid job by it. So it was a good show.
Okay, when I saw this name, I thought I was tripping, but I am very curious about how this name started. MMW, Mountain Mama Wrestling.
It was a great. It ended up being like a great company. It was a small little company for like women. I mean, it was for overall a good company. I mean, I ain't around there that much anymore because I'm being booked, elsewhere and all that such. But it was great. I mean, they really have something down there with the promoter who's put it on. So great, great company altogether.
You know how that name started? I feel like that's like the most unique name I've ever heard. Mountain Mama Wrestling. I thought that was so unique.
That it is.
RWA?
So yeah, RWA. I don't work for them like much anymore because obviously I'm getting booked somewhere else, and everybody tries for the same weekend and all that sort of thing. I mean, it was great. It was great what I got to do there, the opportunities that I had there. It was great. It's always a great crowd, great show put together, and great show ran. It is like one of the popular ones, basically around like I say one of, not saying is the popular, is one of, because there's a lot in PA, much like other states. So it was a great little show put on always.
PWA?
PWA, that was like a show that's a show in Kentucky. I've had some great memorable bouts down there. I had a I had a match with a girl who I've always wrestled named Lucy. We have great chemistry in the ring and sort of thing. and that place was always great. Great, great fans, and we had a great promoter, running it. Just a great, and you could tell it was like a very, it was a wrestling crowd and such more. So overall, it was a well put together show in that sense.
EBW, EBW as in bully.
Yeah, it's EBW. Um, it was a great, that's a great like show. It's a great company put together by by somebody named Iron Bull, which is somebody who I ended up knowing, a guy in this business. And so many people wrestle there that I know. Like I have one girl who's like a friend and a mentor of me named Deb Autumn Breeze. She's an amazing person. She's an amazing like veteran too in this business. Older than me, very much older than me in age. Age wise, and it was a great promotion to to connect with people from like a fan standpoint. And just wrestling there was very lively and very exciting.
I did notice when we get to it, we'll get to it because I have your matches that you've had like a good amount of them. But it seems like you have interacted with Autumn in quite a few places you've been.
Yes, we did for a little bit while, like interact, like especially within like the start. And basically from there she's been a very wonderful mentor to me, like in wrestling. And somebody too in a way who always like has my back. Because in a way, it's hard to trust people sometimes. Not only that, but especially for a female that doesn't have too many too many female friends. It's always so nice to have people like that in your corner or circle.
Yes, indeed. Happy to hear it. CIW.
CIW, that was in like Michigan. I think I only did like a couple shows with them because I ended up getting like booked out or whatever. But it was a great like little show put on in Michigan. Like, and Michigan's a hot box for independent wrestling as like a whole. It's a great state to like wrestle in. And that was another like good promotion that was put on. I was obviously was someone too who was a veteran and all that sort of thing. Very good in the ring, very good in the ring with her. Ended up being a very good time with that promotion and such more. So
RSW.
RSW, I've only been there. I was only there like a couple times because being booked out
Mhm.
and everything. It was for me. It was like a memorable time. More so of more of like a learning experience too. Of how like how wrestling works, because that was more like I think during the beginning time of my like career, and I was still like in a ways like figuring it out. But it was a great little show put on together, and good crowd, and we good wrestlers and so much so forth.
UDCW, and I believe your first time is going as that upcoming show that you have coming up, right? That's your first
Yes, it
time.
is. Yes, it is going to be my first time. It'll be my first time, going there. It's being hyped up. It's a very like exciting event that we have, before the 4th of July. Somebody, who I actually knew ended up recommending me for that like promotion, and like bragging me up to like the person who was in charge. So in a way, I'm very like thankful for that. Obviously, because it's a very big, opportunity that I got at that point. But it's gonna be a fun event. I'll be having a match and all that sort of thing. So excited to see where it takes me.
For people that don't know, UDCW will be going live July 3rd at 7 p.m. and the show's called Insurrection, where you will be taking on Alora O'Shea.
Yes.
Do you know anything about Alora or
I haven't known her personally, but I've seen her stuff and I've seen her work. And in a way, like she's gonna be a great talent to like mesh it up with. So it should be like a fun and exciting match. So it'll be fun, and I expect it to be, a pretty good night overall.
And will this be a video that's uploaded to the YouTube channel on your thing?
Yeah, I mean, usually it will be, depends on that sort of thing, uploading wise, what we can get on, YouTube and what we cannot. But in a way, like I guarantee, like for the most part, it will be on YouTube when all's said and done. So
Good luck to you on that. Stay tuned for that, everybody.
yeah.
Um, you wrestled for this one place that you called Wrestling and Recovery?
Yes, that ended up being a very good promotion. I've only wrestled there, like, what, like, once or twice, maybe. Maybe in that regard. It was a great little company. Ended up putting on like a great little show. Great fans, great environment, and so much there, so forth. And just overall, like, I think too it was one of the best shows I had, I think, when starting out. So
And you call Rise Pro Wrestling your home because that's where you also train at.
yeah. Rise Pro Wrestling is my home. They have great shows, the head trainer, the man who trained me, Brandon K. He puts on, great shows out there, and they're always, so fun and so entertaining in a way. And he makes sure, like, he always gets, like, the best talent, myself included in that, but also, other talent, that is, worthy and deserving to be, like, on these shows. People who put in the day, the day, day in, day out, that put in the work. And also in a way, like, too, I've, kind of like I've grown, with these people in many ways, because, it's my home, and it's my, home promotion. So, I'm not down there all the time because I get booked for, like, other places, but when I can be there, it's always, a good feeling to me. So
Now for EPW, Enterprise Pro Wrestling.
for most part, that show was a very them shows are very good shows. Sometimes, they're very wild, especially with, like, the fans, sort of, and that, that sort of thing. But great overall company at putting on shows. And, good fans, as I've said. And in many ways, just the wrestling is, like, very, like, lively between me and, not only just me, but coming from a bunch of other talents. So great promotion, though.
SCC, Squared Circle Champions.
That was a fun time. It was a great promotion, especially for, like, because it was an all women show too, in a way, which, I mean, very rarely, like, happens. But I think now it's becoming more prominent that we're having, all women shows happening. So I mean, that's a good thing. It's a very fun show. It's, owned by somebody who's very, wonderful in booking talent, and, booking, like, the right type of, experienced females, for the job, and that sort of thing, in that way. So, overall good locker room, great fans, and all that sort of thing. So it's an awesome promotion overall.
CWC Pro Wrestling Runmate or Runmate?
Yeah, I think that's how it goes. It was a great promotion. I mean, I did a couple things with them there for like a little bit, a little bit. And, it was very awesome time. And, great fans, great atmosphere. Ended up having a couple, great matches there. And in a way, it was still an amazing promotion, all and such. So
Net Pro Studios.
that for me was a great place, all over, because that was, once again, another all women's that was an all women's wrestling show. and it was a very amazing show. I mean, I remember to the main event of that being like a hardcore, being like some type of hardcore like wrestling match, some like it was like a hardcore match with like hardcore and all that type of thing. So we had great, women talent putting on like a great show. And I think that's where I was talking about one of my little fan interactions earlier, and I just, still have the picture from there. So, very special, and we really took that time, took that time, and it was very wild too in a way, because me and my, opponent, we really laid it into each other and really put on an amazing match for the people. So it was great all around.
When you say you laid it in, do you mean like you guys worked more stiff than you usually are used to?
Yeah, we're mainly more that we hit more hard in a way, where we hit hard and we do like, very like hard and and aggressive type of things. Like, where we're chopping each other and we're striking each other very hard. Basically, stuff like that. So
And do you say that you maybe work more like this is only like one of the rare times that you work stiff, or do you also work stiff in general? Do you say?
um, I don't really work like stiff, but I work like in a way I'd say more like tight, because tight's kind of like, better than stiff. I'm just like a very like I just say like I'm a very hard hitter. I mean, I lay it in the same way that I would lay it in on everybody else and all that sort of thing. So, you know, I'm just just the idea, of making sure it looks like real, as possible and such a thing. So,
Okay. Erie All Star Wrestling.
yeah, I had a couple like, great matches there. That promotion was great. It was a crowd that was very, like hot for wrestling. It was one of those crowds. It was a very like special crowd, and it was something that was, good and all that sort of thing. And, and it was very fun in the moment, ran by great people and all that such things. So it was very fun and a very great night.
MSW Mountain State Wrestling.
That one ended up being like a very good company too. One of them smaller ones, but I think people need to stop, overlooking them in a way. It ended up being like a very fun, and that's where I continued my feud with my long rival, Lucy, who her and I just had good chemistry there, in the ring. We were in that in that ring together for like a couple of times, and just ended up putting on great matches. So had great matches there, and it was one of the best, one of the best things I've had and such. So
WVWF, the West Virginia Wrestling Federation.
when I used to be there, and I'm obviously, not anymore, because I'm, with all these, other companies and such sort of thing, and booking and all that. So I've been booked up, so I haven't really, gone back there, and I really, can't. But like it was a good little environment, wild little environment in a way. Very, very nice people, very good promotion and sort of thing. So
ROC, Ring of Champions.
that was another one that was also in Michigan. Like I said, Michigan, hot box for wrestling and all that sort of thing. It was a very great company, owned by somebody who, is very like a wonderful guy named James Fury. Really knows how to bring the best in his talent, and, knows how to, bring the A game to these shows. And it's a very big company overall. And, it's a company that always puts on shows and is very, wonderful at what they do.
PWC, Pro Wrestling Cheap Shots.
Pro Wrestling Cheap Shots was also a great time. I had some memorable times there, but in the ring with some, memorable like opponents and, people. and I've been there like a couple times and all that. So remembering their names right now kind of challenging, but but in a way, it was a very good promotion. It was very fun what I got to do there. So
NUPW, next up, Pro Wrestling.
that was a very fun promotion too. It was owned by a bunch of guys who really just want the best for their show, and they got the best out of me, but also out of a bunch of other people. So in a way, it was one of these shows where it was like one of the best shows like one of the best shows out there that I ended up having or such, and I had some great time, I had some, very great times there. So a great run promotion and something that was very, wonderful in the long run.
PPW, Pennsylvania Premier Wrestling.
That's a great promotion. I haven't, made my way back there yet, and I so badly want to. It was a great promotion, run by a guy who's just top of the line class act. I remember I had this big old, part of this big old match where there was like, five of us on a team and all that sort of thing. It was a very fun night, and so many great fans, and like I said, a great promoter, you know, ended up having like a great match overall, and just the top of the line quality of that place is just very, very great in a way, when it comes to like, monitors, the stuff, the ring, everything. Just overall a great and professional place. So
PCWA, Pennsylvania Championship Wrestling Alliance.
PCWA is like a second home to me. I love them very much. I'm treated like queen there, basically. It's a very wonderful environment, and I've met so many wonderful people there, and the fans are just so great to me, in a way. And it's where I won my first, title, and I will always be, grateful that that happened for me. And it was like, and I'm still, holding that title to this day and defending it down there. Just a great environment, really. Have, some awesome fans, awesome little ones, little girls mainly. And, it's always very, very, very fun place. And, I have much love for them all in general.
MVW, Mountain Velocity Wrestling.
That ended up being a very good like promotion. I don't know if it's still like standing today in such a way. I'm sure it is. But it was a very fun little like it was a fun little show put on by a great guy. Very entertaining show, very like lively show, and something that was great all together.
LAW, Legit Alternative Wrestling.
That was fun, and it don't really last anymore. That company don't really last anymore. It was kind of brought down by certain things, but the guy who owned it gave me the best out of that company, where I ended up winning like a 21 man rumble, and that was very fun, especially being the only female in that ring. And I feel like, in a way, it made me completely badass. It made me completely like a great, made me look good like as a talent, and so much, so forth. And it was a very fun and wild experience, but it was, in a way, it was so great.
We will definitely get to that match when we do, because I do have that lined up and all the competitors that were in it. And you could tell us more about that as we get to those matches eventually. But the next, we have two more companies that we have. BOTB, Battle on the Border.
Battle on the Border has been great. I've been going there a lot since like the start. They're very great. They do, they're fair with like, the women especially, giving us a good bit of time to go out there and do our thing. It's a very good company run by, run by a wonderful owner, and I've just met some very, I met very nice faces down there, and it overall is a great, greatly run show and a greatly run production and such forth.
3WA Worldwide Wrestling Alliance.
It was a great promotion, and this is one, too, where my wonderful friend Autumn has been in there with me, and so much there, so forth. It was a great time, for what we had, and I made, a couple, connections with people, couple connections, with talent, and mainly connections with the fans. It was just a very nice little place that I think, deserves all the love in the world.
Now we are going to get back to some of these questions before we go into your matches and give you the final questions. I have three for those final, actually four for those when we get there. But one of my question is, where, what's a misconception people have about you?
I think the misconception that people have about me the most is like saying that I can't, like, that I can't do it or whatever, like in a way, like I can't do it or whatever, or people underestimate me because of how I am, especially with the social anxiety and things, saying, or people tell me, like, I ain't good enough, or people treating me as as if, or trying to like put me down in such a way, and all that, and all that stuff, and so to speak. And for me, that over the years, I get like tired, like I get like tired of it. So, like, in a way, that's my point, when I go out into that ring, to prove that I can do this, I can be the very best at it, while I do it.
You're not going to let anybody doubt you, and you're not going to let those doubts take you down.
No, no, I'm not gonna let it. I'm never gonna let it happen.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
My goal is to get signed. My goal is to get signed, by major company, whether it be WWE, AEW, TNA, Ring of Honor, wherever. I see myself, being, even more successful than I am now, and I see myself, being signed, and doing this for the rest of my life.
Now, I think the most matches that I've had out of all the matches I have you in, like that you've been in that I have listed, I think you've done like a falls count anywhere, and you told us about that stiff match you had. Would you ever do a death match or more extreme type matches where you may get the color, as we
I'm
say?
not like I'm not like one of those people that's into like the hardcore death match style type of thing. That's not really like, like, my thing. And in a way, like, to all the people that do them, well, good, and that's their thing. They can continue to do that thing or whatever. So, and I've seen that too, in a way, kind of, linger people's like careers. But and for some people, that's mostly, their whole career. So I have all, like, respect for the world. You see people like John Moxley making a career out of themselves with that, and so much there, so forth. It's not, my thing. I just really love, wrestling and laying it all out there, mainly like in the ring and such forth.
How has the business changed from where you started to now?
I would say where it really has changed in a way is, the more it's like the more doors that I think, like, I think independent wrestling, opens, and I think especially, with a bunch of new, like, a bunch of new companies, added to, like, like AEW and all that sort of thing, I think in a way there's like more I think in a way there's like more opportunity, especially for, like, the women, and all that sort of thing. And I feel like, what has changed is, I think, people's, willingness, to work together to, make that happen in a way. And I think, what has changed, is, as you know, little things like, you know, the way that, you know, modern wrestling is today versus, you know, back then. Things have changed, you know, in that, you know, in that regard, you know, more styles and, you know, more things being shown out there and all that sort of thing.
I think I would really like to credit like Finley, especially for that, especially in WWE, because all the women were represented in a certain like way, were pulling hair and stuff like that, doing
Yeah.
like gimmick
Yeah,
stuff.
very.
And Finley changed that, and I was, oh, dude, that man's a freaking genius
Yes.
and a true man, because he was like, no, I don't want you to slap her, I want you to full on bang at her, but with the arm. You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly.
And he
Yes.
got in trouble for doing that. Did you know that he got in trouble and he would get kicked out for what? Okay, fine, they'll lay off him for like
Yeah,
2 weeks.
it's pretty. Ugh.
Yeah, I'm glad to see how far women's wrestling has come, and you guys are still kicking the ass up there.
Right. Yes.
In your opinion, where do you see the business going? From where it is today, where do you see it going?
I see the business still like going in a very successful path. You know, obviously, you know, trends will change, you know, in wrestling too, obviously, you know, things that, you know, get done as time, you know, goes on. I think the styles will keep evolving, you know, things will keep being, you know, different. I think more horizons and like doors will be open, especially, you know, to getting into like, you know, major like promotions and such. And I think, you know, with the independent circuit, you know, it's more going to be more like opportunity given to people, you know, who really want to do this and people who really want to make a career out of it. And, you know, the work to get there will still keep, you know, it'll keep going. You'll still, you know, you'll keep, you know, grinding more harder than ever in a way. And, you know, it'll just continue to get more challenging, you know, not only for the men and the women, not only for the men, but also the women. And in a way, that's where I see, you know, where it's going to be at.
Now I'm gonna go down your list of accomplishments here. You won
Mhm.
the LAW 21 person over the top rope. It was more. It was called a battle royal, but it literally turned into like a Royal Rumble in a sense. But it was very quicker than a
Yes.
standard Royal Rumble, and that was in January 2025. How did it feel to be the one to win? And you came in at number 4 the whole time you were in there.
It felt, it was, you know, very like amazing to actually, you know, win that. Just, you know, to just, you know, for you know, for out them, you know, guys in a way and prove, you know, my dominance. Like, hey, I'm, you know, I'm dominant too, and that sort of thing. It was a very wild thing, you know, that happened. And, you know, I had some very, you know, interesting opponents and people in that ring. And it just felt like a great, you know, for, you know, like great, one of my first accomplishments in that career, in my career, and so much forth.
And another feat in that, that was called FUTV episode 1, the first ever episode of Law. You won in the main event. And
Yes.
I'm gonna go down the list of competitors, and you could tell me if you like having to pick, if you want to say something about a competitor. I'll just go down the list here in order. Dave
Gotcha.
Jameson.
I think I did have a little bit of running in the run in there with him. I mean, hard to remember now because it's been like, you know, a
Yeah.
year since then. But I do remember having a little bit of a run in with him, and, you know, and that was all fun. So,
Ben Metal.
that was fun. I don't think we had so much in there, you know, but it was still fun to get, you know, to see him get little, you know, mixed up in there with all them and such.
Dax Preacher, who came out with the freaking barbed wire 2x4.
Gosh, he was interesting. I mean, I think we had a little bit of work we did in that, you know, in that, you know, rumble and sort of thing, and it was fun, and it was exciting and all that sort. So,
And you came in after him, but who came in after you was Bro Hemoth.
bro, bro, he was super, you know, super big, you know, and then back at the time he was super big, you know, and it was fun, you know, being in there to, you know, being there with them big, you know, with them big men and trying, you know, to trying, you know, to to get them out in a way, which, you know, very leading because some of them were very, you know, Gurfy or whatever. But it was very fun. Had some memorable time with him in there
DH Holmes.
DH Holmes, I mean, we there was a couple times. I mean, he was one of those ones. I think we ended up really getting a little bit of time and whatever. So much so forth. So it was a great time and all that. So
Mike Everything.
we had a good bit of time in there in that rumble for the most part. It was something that was great and something that was great and fun. Ended up getting some good spots with him and all that sort of thing.
Gigi Jacobs.
Yeah, he was fun. He was fun in his own way in that ring. We ended up having like a great time and ended up exchanging blows and all that sort of thing. So yeah, nothing too big in a way, but it was very fun.
Michael McMoney 2, the son of Michael McMoney 1.
That was fun. I mean, great professional in the ring, no doubt. But we ended up having a great time and really mixed it up with one another.
Big Sherm.
He was fun, one of them, other big girthy dudes in a way. So I love mixing it up with the big girthy dudes. So there's something about them in a way that it's just very fun to get in there, improve your dominance, them, despite your height and size and all that.
Stephen Kane.
He was a fun cat. I mean, I think he was another one where we rarely got to do anything, but we had some times where we had some blows, and it was very fun to work him, and very very fun to dominate over him in a way.
Angelo Cruz.
He was very fun. We ended up doing some good spots, some which that I remember. I mean, some that I don't because this was over a year ago. So like in a way it was just very fun. It was very fun to see what we could have what we ended up doing in that ring and so forth. So
Vance Strawder. He was definitely a big boy in that match as well.
yes, yes, he was very big and girthy. We had some fun time in there. One of them guys I just ended up exchanging blows with. Very, very fun and very very good guy to work with in the ring. So if anyone ever gets a chance.
CJ Busha.
He was very fun. I don't know. I mean, I think I rarely got in stuff with him, but it was very fun to work with him and see where he was going and all that such forth. So
Pepper Pride, the other woman in
uh
the match.
yes, yes, she's very fun. She's a no doubt like a great professional, just somebody I think who deserves all the love and all the love and wrestling. Very like a great woman, one of the most dominant women out there. We ended up like getting one of the major time though I had was with her because she was someone else who I could mainly like mix it up with. We had a great time just exchanging blows and being aggressive with each other and that sort of thing.
Soda Pop Jones.
He was fun. He was definitely like a character for the most part, and he ended up being like he was very eccentric in the ring, very very fun though to work with, and good professional and all that sort of thing. So it was very fun to do all that with him and such forth.
Judo Jones.
Judo. Him and I are actually we're like wrestling friends to this day. Um, he was a very great guy to get in the ring and work with. He was very wonderful to work with, very easy with to work with too, because some people aren't easy, and we just had a fun time together, and we killed it in a way.
JC Grunge.
There's another name. We were We were very good. We were very good in the ring together. Throwing shots, exchanging blows. And did a couple big things together and all that sort of thing. And it was all well together and all sort of thing.
Okay, this name, I'm still ironicized about this, but they choose their own, but I liked it. I thought it was awesome. The tongue.
It was a great thing that I had there with him. We definitely had some wild moments with him being that and him being that character. It was very fun. We had some memorable spots and moments in that match. Great fun with him. So definitely.
Mike Believe.
Uh Mike was a great opponent for like the most part and everything. We exchanged some blows. I don't think he's the one. He's one of those I had like the most time with, but he was in a way wonderful and professional to work with in many areas and such.
The next and last person on this Battle Royal Rumble was Wyatt Black.
He's a character. He's another kid. He was somebody who could work. He could work in the ring, very well, especially for the size that he is. Which in many ways, there's a lot of people like that can work, and I think he was just one of them. And he was certainly a character in all of his own rights. So good to kind of mesh up with.
Hell of an accomplishment because you were the one that won that Battle Royal Rumble, but you earned yourself a spot in the tournament where you would go on to face Pepper Pride, who you met in the said
Yeah.
match, but Pepper Pride was the one walking away victorious.
Yeah, what happened there? What happened there for the most part? Can't win them all if you know what I
Exactly.
mean.
Yeah.
But in a way, it was such a great match that me and Pepper had just together, me and her in the ring. We're both two professionals and knew what knew what we were doing and all that stuff. And we had a wonderful time and put on a good class act together in such ways.
Well said. Hell of a matchup. Nothing to be ashamed of. Win or lose, it's about doing what you love.
Right.
Um, EPW, Era of a New King, where you took on Lydia and Raina Black in a triple threat.
Yes, that was a very fun match overall, and triple threats are all their funs. I remember all this. I remember a good bit of the spots we had, and they were very fun and all that sort of thing. So
And another one of your accomplishments is UCW Pine Coning Cheese Cup.
yes, that's just recently my most wonderful accomplishment, which I ended up earning because none of the women weren't there, but and it had two guys try to tell me I don't deserve it or whatever. Me and then some other guy who ended up saving me ended up becoming my partner, and we ended up taking them down. I ended up especially taking them down. And it was a very fun match, one of my favorite matches. And it ended up raining, and that made it more fun, and this was outside, so in a way it was a very fun, memorable, wild moment, and it'll be one that I don't forget. So
If you don't mind talking about when you said that there was guys that said you didn't deserve, was this an in character thing or was this like out of
they
character?
were more in character,
Okay, so this wasn't like a
like
thing, like a
wrestling
shoot that
character.
they were telling you.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and your current accomplishment, which I think you said you're the current PCWA Bushholz Action Auction House champ of August 2025 was when you won it.
Yes, that was whenever I won it, and it is one of my proudest accomplishments, like truly, like in a way my first, like it's my first title run, which I won at like 19 or whatever. um it was very great, and I especially needed that belt because personally, well, didn't need, but ended up, having the belt to boost my confidence in a way because I was personally going through some things through that time period, and it really took a dark place on me. But then that title just, motivated me then to keep, to work hard to get out of that dark place, and now I'm thriving, better than ever.
So was are you out of that dark place now, or was it something that
Yeah,
okay?
I'm out of it. I'm out of it now, very much in a way where like my confidence better. I'm controlling my I have better control now of my social anxiety, and I'm getting like a better and I have like a better like outlook too on things, and was to able to forgive myself for things that happened in that time period that well, no, weren't really my fault. Or you sit there and think, "Oh, could I have done that?" But hey, at the end of the day, it's about being able to move on from that rough time and push yourself forward. So
You're a tough individual from speaking with you, so keep fighting, as they say. Fight the good fight.
yes,
And you, because you're the current champion of PCWA, right?
yes,
And you have a title defense coming up at the Auctioneer's Ball for PCWA on August 8th. The doors open at 5. Bell time starts at 6. And you will be taking on somebody that you're very familiar with, Paris McQueen.
yes, yes. She's a nice like professional to like work with, and obviously she's always the heel of the hour type of thing. We've had some matches together, and some and some times where we've run into each other, and so I'm excited to run another one back with her.
Now, you being a champion, what is it like to hold a championship and being given that opportunity?
For me, it is so like for one thing, first of all, I am forever grateful for it. And it's so like wonderful because with this, especially with this title, I can prove why I deserve to be on this type of like level, to that level of holding a belt and that sort of thing. It's just it's been very great being able to hold that title, and I feel like in a way I've been able to transform that title because people weren't it wasn't taken, I think, seriously too much. But now, like, to where I can flip it and make it be taken seriously, and transforming a company in a way. And it's just so wonderful to me that I got to do that and continue to do that.
Do you have the belt with you to show it off?
No, I don't have it with me. Well, okay, somebody's gonna go get it for me. So yeah,
Hey,
it's a it's a wonderful belt and that sort of thing. So yeah, all right, I have it right
look
here.
at that beautiful championship right
Uh,
there. Right there,
yes,
everybody. That's
there it
awesome.
is. Yes, it is a wonderful belt. It is my proudest accomplishment. I ended up defeating like a guy for it. So that's what, I feel like in a way makes it better. So,
Yeah, I've noticed you're no stranger to fighting men or women. You're down for it.
yes.
Speaking of that, actually, where is it? Where is right here. So we could go down your PCWA matches, and we can actually start where you won the championship, and that was against Kyle Grant, who was the champion at the time, and then you walked out the new champion.
He wasn't the champion at the time. It was
Oh,
run by some guy, the auctioneer, but he was
oh,
unable to defend his title, so he sent somebody else in, and Kyle Grant ended up being the little snooge of the hour that he sent in away. So we had a good match together, whatever. And but at the end of the day, I reigned supreme. So
and you also had a match with Brittany Storm.
Yeah, I ended up having a match with her. We did pretty good for like, most part. I mean, we did good. I mean, I ended up carrying my way, proving, that I can be a veteran and that I can run things, and we did good overall.
When you say you can run things, were you like guiding her in the match?
Yeah, got like guiding her a little bit because I was more, experienced than she was in a way. So
Okay. You also had a match against Val Berman, where Val Berman walked away victorious.
yeah, it was more it's like a last woman, like it was a last woman standing match. It was a very, very fun match. We ended up pushing each other to our limits and good professional to work with and such forth.
And there was a PCWA championship defense which you had against her one on one, but you retained.
Yes.
And then you had another match against Nahir Robles where you also walked out victorious.
Yes, I ended up walking out like victorious with her. Me and her have like meshed it together, but we never really had a chance to go at it one on one. And I think I think a great opportunity for me to finally get in the ring with her and win, show that we both can be roots. And at the end of the day, I still walked away champion.
So the last match that I have listed for this company was your title on the line against Tiffany Avatar, where you walked away victorious.
Yes, me and her ended up putting on a good match together. Ended up being like very entertaining for me, the fans, and such forth. So she walked into the Sammy Slammer, and that was it. 1, 2, 3.
MMW matches that I have listed, you took on the first one I have is Riley Storm,
Yes, we ended up doing good together. We ended up putting on a good match and all that sort of thing. So ended up going pretty well.
then against a lady that you brought up a few times in here, Lucy B. Sweet, where she walked out victorious.
Yeah, me and her have had like great chemistry together in the ring and have had so many, good matches together. So had some memorable times in that match for sure.
On RWA, you took on Lexus Sin.
Yeah, we had a little bit of something going on there between me and her. We ended up meshing it really well together and things ended up working out really well.
WDWA, the all female Royal Rumble.
That was a fun that was a very fun show and a very fun, rumble. There were some things that, that I remember, I ended up doing like a good bit of big spots, ended up mixing it up there with some really good women, a good rumble overall, and something, very fun.
TPW, where you were a part of the Frostbite show in 2024, where what it looked like to be an 8-person tag match.
Yes, it was an 8-person tag match. Ended up going real fun. Got, some time in there to do my thing, if you will. And it was very fun. It was a good match and all that, so to speak.
Now for PWA, you had a match against Tegan Thorne, and this was outside as well, where Tegan walked out victorious.
Yeah, it was for her title. I believe it was for her title. And at the time we were we were dedicated to put on a good show, and that's what we did. So much there, so forth. And she's obviously done some good in this business as well. So very fun and entertaining match in such way.
And then you also took on somebody that we already talked about, Lucy B. Sweet, where she walked out victorious.
Yes, honestly, I haven't picked up a win against her, but things with her again. Me and her have great chemistry in the ring, and I think that's what it's all about in the end of the day. And we ended up making a very memorable match.
Well said. And so wrestling recovery, you took on Autumn Breeze, who you've also mentioned for EBW.
Yes, we ended up putting on a very like classic like match together or whatever. Very great, very great veteran whatever. We ended up, showing both, I think, to each other that we were the best, and I think that's what made us both, come together in a way is, us being able to prove that we are the best in many ways.
Oh yeah. And next up, you had a match with where you teamed up with Autumn against Twisted Jester and Izzy Rays, where Twisted Jester and Izzy Rays walked away victorious.
Yeah, it was fun, getting the team up, with my mentor Autumn, who I love very much, very close, very close with and such forth. We had a great match together. Things ended up meshing, very well. We didn't come out victorious, but it was still a great match for what we had and what we had put together.
And you also had one more match that I have listed at the moment for them is Slam. You took on Izzy Rays, who was one of your opponents in the tag match, but you walked out victorious in this one.
Yes, it ended up, by all means, it was a great challenge, big dude. But like it was a very fun match and I enjoyed being able to, show that I can be victorious against someone like that.
Now we move on to NUPW, next up Pro Wrestling, and you had a match against, this was a triple threat, Layla James and Nahir Rubbles.
That was a very fun triple threat match. It's one of my most memorable triple threat matches. It was very fun what we all got to do in that ring. A very hard hitting match. Very, very great, very great combo with all three of us in there. It ended up being like one of the best matches of my career I think I've, had.
And then you had a match against Stevie Brooks.
Yeah, she ended up being a good, being like a good opponent. Probably, like a nice challenging to opponent in a way. And I very much think that was one of the best things. She was one of the best that I've had in the ring and great match overall.
Now we move on to ROC, where you took on Haven Harris.
Yes, she was a very good opponent. We got in the ring together. She gave me her best and I gave her my best. We ended up having a good chemistry in that ring. It was a good kick ass event.
Then there's another one where you took on Haven in a Falls Count Anywhere, though.
Yes, we did a falls count anywhere match. It was awesome. I remember picking up a bell and hitting her in the head with it. The ring bell. Um I hit her, yeah, I hit her in the head with it. It was a great match. We both showed, that we could, bring like the best out of each other. It was a very fun match, a very hard hitting match, and I will always, cherish that match. And I think, I think mainly I got to show her and everybody else that I can be, brutal and, survive these types of matches in a way. So
Erie All Star Wrestling, where you had a match against Amanda Blitz.
that was a very fun match. She was a good professional to work with. Obviously, too at the end ended up making my finisher look good. But she was very, very very it was very fun, in a way. We had a good, match together and everything came along very good.
That's always great. That's always great to hear. And then you also had a match against Revna. Did I say that right? Revna?
Yes, it was me and her had a great match. Very, challenging too. I think one of the biggest opponents, especially for females that I've ever had. But it was a very good match that me and her had. We were just, two professionals doing our thing, and it ended up going really well.
For TNWA, you took on Stacy Lynn Patterson, where Stacy walked out victorious.
that was a very fun match. I mean, I remember that we had some good, we had a good time, I think, in that ring, being able to perform for those fans and everything, and it just ended up being a very, very good time.
Heck yeah. In UCW, you took on the lovely Miss Larkin.
Yes, that I think has to be one of the biggest biggest matches of my like career. And now, she's OVW women's champion and everything. She, it was very great to work in there with somebody, who's more up at that level. We had a good match together. We had a good like combination of both us put together and so much so forth.
At CWC, you took on Dodge Enya, where you walked out victorious.
Yeah, that was a very fun match. I mean, Dodge really put it to like, the limits, and we really pushed each other to the limits. It ended up being fun. It ended up being a great showing. And I think, especially, for us, since we were the only two women on the card, it ended up being like like, I think one of the best things out there. So,
For Mountain State, you took on Lucy B. Sweet, who we've talked about quite a bit.
yes, once again, very good chemistry we've had together. We've had a very good matches together, me and her. We just took each other to the limit every time. I'm still destined for that win against her though. So
For RPW, you took on Mika, where you walked out victorious.
yes, that ended up being like a good match. I think good match because I've been in the ring with her quite a good bit. Good in her own like skill set and her own like mannerisms and all that sort of thing. So
And then you had a triple threat. Well, actually, it was more like a tag match where you teamed up with Ava, what it looked like, and you took on Lexus Sin.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, we did that. That was like that was memorable in my home promotion, and I was grateful to get that opportunity and so much there, so forth, and so.
Now you can tell us more about this one, the hard hitting match you had in Net Pro Studios against Sis Sasaki. I know she's a hard hitter. She scares
Oh
me.
yes,
She scares
yes.
me.
I don't blame you. Yeah, but we had a nice, hard hitting thing, together, just chopping the living heck out of each other, and just hit it, just hitting one another. I think there's a couple times like where she chopped me hard in the stomach, but I delivered back, in my own way. We had a hard hitting match together. We both, took each other to the limits in a great way. So I showed her that I ain't no light cookie.
Now for 3WA, the first one I have on the list is for the Women's Championship, where you took on your mentor, Autumn Breeze. And this was at the 3WA Carnage, episode 95, Slamsgiving, part 1, where Autumn Breeze retained.
Yeah, once again, Breeze, it's a great opponent in the ring. Somebody definitely very skilled, and we've had banger matches, together, and we chop the living heck out of each other, obviously, and really, really put on a great show whenever it comes down to it. We're just really great together, and it was one of the matches where everything just flowed very well, and it was a great show.
And you took her on again in a singles match, but then you guys met
Yes.
again on Carnage episode 109, Red Fight in Blue, part 1. And this was a number one contenders match where she walked away victorious.
Yeah, she was a great, like I've said before, she's a great opponent in her own right. She's done some great things in this business, always been there, done that. Really brings out the best in girls, especially me and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, one of the best.
Now, the last ones I have for 3WA, you had two matches against this person. You faced Nat Castle both in two matches. The first time it was you walking up victorious. Then you guys faced that Scoop Slam.
Yes. It was very fun. She obviously, she is like a wild character herself. Very fun in a way. Just overall, we were great professionals in the ring together. Me and her, we had good chemistry, and it was very fun the time that we had together.
Now for BOTB, Battle on the Border, that we shall get to here soon, but right after I announce another show you have coming up, Tuesday Night Thunder. Doors and meet and greet will be at 6 p.m. Bell time 7 p.m. on July 14th.
Yeah, that's gonna be a very fun show where I will be defending, my title. So because somebody, threw a cheap shot and decided to challenge me, and I was like, okay, fine, you want it that way? All right. So me and the auctioneer will be the special guest referee in such a thing, and it'll be a fun and wild night.
So you'll be defending your auction championship, but if you were to lose, that person would go on in your place to face Paris McQueen.
Yes, if that were to happen, I honestly don't plan on it though.
I have no doubt. Now for BOTB, it was for the tag team championships where your partner was Steffi Mack, where you guys took on two familiar foes of yours, Paris McQueen and Lucy B. Sweet. Were they? It looked like I think it was Lucy that held Paris down on your partner, and you were kind of like holding your head on the mat, like outside the ring, and they won.
Yeah, I mean that match was obviously wild within itself. Two people that we honestly, got in there with, and Lucy's still the bugger that I'm waiting to get, to get the win on here. But it was a great, I think tag match for what me and Steffi had worked for. We ended up meshing well really together, and it ended up going in a very nicely done match.
Next up, you took on Casey Clay.
Yeah, that was like, a very good match. Again, kind of upset. I was upset in a way that I didn't, that I didn't, get the win. So that's why, the next time I go back to Battle on the Border with, I'm serious about going back there and getting the win because I've been successful at every, place that I've ever, went to. But, this definitely is like where I want to have, my next win and that sort of thing.
Now for Battle of the Border coming up, it's going to be a women's division championship scramble. Well, not championship, but just women's division scramble at the show
Yeah.
Legends and All Stars, where it will be you versus Missy King versus Cassie Clay versus Maxima Mantaza versus Miss Hannah.
Yes, that is all of us in there. We're gonna mix it up, and we're gonna put on a great show, and it'll be all every man for its every woman for itself. For when it comes to getting the victory.
If you would like to, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but you want to give a few words to those four ladies you will be facing, a promo, if you will.
Well, you know what? All I'll say is, you know what? All you ladies have come from different miles and, different lives, different, stories, and all that sort of thing. A couple of you I do know, a couple of you a couple of you, that I don't know, whatever. But you know what? This is the time that the slammer wins. So you know what? You all better be ready. It's slammer time.
Now for where UDCW will be taking on Laura O'Shea. Want to say anything to her?
All I gotta say is she just be ready because a Sammy Slammer is coming around the corner for her. So slamming time.
For Tuesday Night Thunder, where you're going to be taking on that person that gave you that cheap shot. Any words?
And you know what? She will not have the chance to ever cheap shot me again because once I get in that ring, I'm going to prove exactly, why I am the champion and why I will remain the champion. and you know why I earned this title and why I'm gonna keep this title.
Now to Paris McQueen, where you will be defending your auction championship at the auctioneer's ball.
You know what? When it comes to when it comes to Paris, me and her have had our differences. Me and her have had our ways with each other. But you know what? This is different now. I am holding a title. I am a champion, and I keep proving day in and day out that I am a champion. And with her, just like everybody else, it'll be the same thing. It is Slammin time.
Now, do you want to tell us your out of all the matches you've had, give us a top 5 to 10 matches, top 5 to 10 matches that you've had.
I would say my top like 5 to 10. I would say one like a match that I've had with like Autumn Breeze, like especially the first time I went around on there with her. We had a great time and it was very memorable what me and her had, and just a very great, thing put together. And the second match that I would end up saying would be that triple threat between me, Layla, and Naher. We ended up, tearing the roof off the place, ended up being a wild thing. It was a very special, triple threat match. One of my favorite triple threat matches. And my third one that I would say would have to be, end up being in the ring with Nat Castle. We ended up doing very good in that regard. Uh, she she was great to work with, professionally and all that sort of thing. I would say, my fourth would have to be that man's, rumble, because obviously we ended up it just ended up being a good, rumble for me. Ended up a good chance for me to show like my skill set. So it definitely deserves like a spot on that list, and gave me like, like the motivation I need to get, started into like, this business. And, I was so happy that I ended up picking up the win.
Okay, that's three.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so okay. And then after that, I would say like the best time I ever had in the ring would be with Lucy B Sweet, especially like, the one where we recently like mixed it up. We ended up having a good time together. It ended up, taking the crowd by storm and all that sort of thing. So, and then I would say like the next one would be like the next match I had with Autumn, again, because Autumn's a wonderful competitor. We just had so much fun, you know, in the ring together. We ended up showing why we, both belong, and why we're still gonna remain like two of the best. And then after that, I would say like one of the best matches that I had, ended up here recently being with like Mika. We ended up doing really good. We ended up like putting on a show, something very good, and it was very fun. And then obviously, I'd say the next match would be the one I recently had with Sasaki. We were it was a very brutal, hard hitting match, and I think we really shared, we shared each other's brutality very well and all that such thing. Then I would say the next one would be the false count anywhere match between me and Haven. We ended up doing very well. It was very fun, and I got to show her that I am brutal, that I am not one of those, light feathers, as they, say in this, in this business, and all that, such for such. Then I would say, the next match that I think I've had is the most recent is that tag team match I had in the rain at UCW. That was very fun, and it gave me a chance, to keep proving, that that I'm dominant, and I'm my badass self, in very much a good way, like shape or form. We just, had some memorable times there. And then the last one I would have to say, I'd have to say would have to be, obviously the night that I won my championship, because it was great for me when I first won my title. And they put me, in the ring with somebody who was very, very, skilled in his own right. So it was very, very good night. Definitely very memorable.
Hell yeah. Now, top 5 to 10 dream matches.
Jeez. I would say like a top five would be, my top five would obviously, be like, I mean, I would have said like I would say somebody, kind of like, Britt Baker if she was still around because I don't think she is,
If she
I don't
does
think she's
return, you never know.
you
You'll get your chance.
never know. You never know, of course. Somebody who definitely would be, somebody, very fun, very fun to like mix it up with and all that such thing. Then I would say like Katie Arquette, who's a very, skilled, like independent wrestler. I think I've seen her around, but hey, who knows? The time for that, the time for that will come and all that sort of thing. Then I would say like like somebody who I'd also would, think I dwell with would probably be like, someone maybe like, like Charlotte Flair in a way. That would definitely be a good, match in that own way, that would be a very nice, spectacle in a way to put on and big, performance. And another one I would say would be obviously like Tony Storm. Definitely a big, definitely would be a big type of thing. Definitely would be a big type of thing because she's obviously one of the best right now, and that would be very nice, to get to have that, chance in a way. So
Timeless Tony.
yes, all that sort of thing. And then the next one I'd say who's now because I believe she's now signed Haven. I believe she's now like signed or whatever. So it'd be really nice to go back with her and dwell it back up again and all that sort of thing. So
Okay.
and then I would say, the next thing would be like I think maybe because she's heel right now, Becky, because obviously I'm not a fan, of the like not a fan of more heel Becky, I'm more a fan of like, when she was coming out,
Yeah.
the first time around and that sort of thing. She'd be very fun to, mix it up with. And someone else who I think would be, somebody like Roxanne Perez, because she's basically around like the same size and height in a way. And I think that would be a dwelling, of something very that would be a dwelling of something very good, together in that
Oh yeah.
way and such forth. Uh I think like the next one, if anything, that would be anything that would be, anyone that would be like a good opponent. I mean,
Oh,
I've seen people, there's a girl, named trying to think of her name now. Yeah. I'd say a match with like Alexa Bliss would definitely be, yeah, a good one because that would be something that would, swell together and all that sort of thing. So another dream match in a way that would be of the sense. And then another one that I would say, very like fresh, out of the get go. I think, another one I think between me and Autumn again, because that would be something that would be very fun and we'd put on, I think, a spectacle and all that sort of thing. We just do great together. And then another banger with, as much as I have for not, winning against her, Lucy, because we always, put a great show on and so forth.
amazing list. I would all love to see those dream matches and even see you revamp matches with the ones that you also said in that list. Got a whole career ahead of you.
Yeah, right.
Do you have any road stories you would like to tell us before I get to my final question? Any road stories?
Uh, I would say one road story that I have, one like road story that I have, in many ways is like I think I would say this is more like more like a wrestling story, but in that all men's battle royal, I was slammed by somebody who called himself like the queer, like he ended up calling himself like the queer hillbilly from like Pound Town or whatever. And it was so fun, and then he was, like, being all right, and then I remember he was the last one that I got to eliminate, so very fun in a way. That's one of my best stories there, so
Yeah. Okay. Now, my final question. What do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be, not only that I was like very successful, one of the best in this business, but one of the things to know is that in a way I did it. I did it. I went out and I did, the one thing that I'm so passionate about. And I want my legacy to, leave on that, not, anyone can do this, they just have to work hard for it. And, they have to work hard, to achieve it. And I want them, and I want, to leave a mark, not only for me, but for other women, entering this business, that there's more, opportunity, especially, more opportunity to succeed and just keep, not only, wrestling alive and better, but also women's wrestling alive better and better. And that's what I, want to do and so much so forth.
Heck yeah. Sammy, thank you very much for giving me this time of day to even interview you. This was such an honor. And just to reiterate for people that should stay tuned for your upcoming work, go check out BOTB Women's Division Championship Scramble at Legends and All Stars. And it will be on Saturday, June 27th. The doors open at 6 o'clock, bell time 6:30. Where Sammy will be in a five-way against a scramble against Missy King, Casey Clay, Maxima Montanza, and Miss Hannah. Also, go check out UDCW July 3rd, 7 p.m. for the Insurrection Show, where she will take on Alora O'Shea. July 14th, Tuesday Night Thunder, doors and meet and greet at 6 p.m., bell time 7 p.m. ECWA Bushholds Auction Championship on the line at the Auctioneers Ball, where she will defend against Paris McQueen on August 8th. Doors at 5, bell at 6. Any final words before we end the live?
No, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and, talk on here. And this was very fun.
You're always welcome on any time, and I would love to have you on again in the future. And I wish you luck on your upcoming shows, Sammy.
Well, thank you very much.
Now, for everybody that is watching, we all hope you have a great day, good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever y'all may be, and peace out.